The real Tetragrammaton, further exposing Christianity. For those of you who are forever making endless posts regarding your problems with Christian indoctrination, please do not be lazy. Read the following article before making more and more posts regarding your psychological problems in overcoming Christian lies, and then apply yourself to meditation. I have written extensively concerning spiritual allegories. Most average people cannot see through the hidden meanings behind the allegories, and they take the tales of the gods and the legends as literal. First off, Satan and the powers of hell do not demand any slavish worship. They are our friends. They are and have been trying to help us. They are extraterrestrial beings. The Jews are always on the attack when one mentions extraterrestrial beings. With extensive and advanced meditation, like the symbolic cobra serpent, one experiences increased awareness, and one's mind expands, symbolized by the hood of the cobra. When you can finally see the truth and see through all of the lies of Christianity, Islam, and its ugly Jewish root, these programs are no longer a threat. Where there does come a point when no amount of lying or coercion will get one who has seen and who knows the truth to believe the lies any longer. I keep reading in these groups on and off when approving posts just how much Christianity has taken hold in the minds of many people here. Satan has been showing me more and more as I have opened myself in both my meditations and my studies. To know the truth, one must study extensively into the occult subjects of which the Bible threatens against. I have done this for many, many years. While I've made many references to Jehovah and that filthy Jews' Nazarene for the umpteenth time, neither one of these entities exist. Both are thought forms to some extent, and there are enemy extraterrestrials, such as the Greys, who work under the reptilians out there for the enslavement of the Gentiles on this planet, along with some enemy Nordics who pose as these fictitious entities and also promote them. Before there were modern cameras and available information regarding extraterrestrials, occultist Aleister Crowley, when in a trance, drew a picture of Jehovah, and it was an illustration of one of those bulb-headed Greys. Okay, enough said, but if I don't repeat myself ad nauseum giving some background on this, people who are new will be lost regarding what I am now going to write. If you delve into occult teachings far enough, and occult societies such as Freemasonry, etc., much of the spiritual teachings have been systematically removed, and what remains is corrupted. Most of these organizations know of the powers of the soul to some extent. Freemasonry, before it was corrupted by the Jews, was very spiritual, and a 33rd degree Mason was one who had his serpent ascended, as the spine has an esoteric 33 degrees. Way back when, accomplished Freemasons communicated with each other telepathically. Rebuilding the Temple of Solomon had to do with the magnum opus and the soul. The Jews have taken this concept and have corrupted it to advance their insatiable greed and direct it towards their communist agenda of creating a Gentile slave state. 666 is the Kabbalistic square of the sun. 666 is the all-important solar chakra. The true meaning of the Temple of Solomon is the Temple of the Sun. Soul, Om and On are all words for the sun. Soul is the Latin word for the sun and is close to the English word soul. Om is a name given by the Hindus to the spiritual sun, and On is an Egyptian word for sun. The symbolism of the Temple of Solomon was stolen by the Jews and made into a fictitious character, as with the fictitious Nazarene and nearly everything in the Judeo-Christian Bible. The true meaning of the Temple of the Sun is spiritual. This symbolizes the perfected soul where the rays from the solar, 666, chakra, which is the center of the soul and circulates spiritual energy, radiates into 8 separate rays. The shining soul is symbolized by the sun. 8 is the number of Astaroth. This is also the New Jerusalem. The name of Jerusalem has also been stolen and corrupted into a city in Israel. Jerusalem is a concept. The shining, perfected soul is also symbolic as the light. Now, most of you already know how that annoying fish symbol the Christians use is in truth a vagina turned on its side. It's called a yoni. If you look to many versions of the tarot cards, even going way back into the Middle Ages, you will find the suits of the rods, wands, and the swords are often in the shape of a yoni. The heart chakra, the neuter chakra, is also in the shape of a yoni. The yoni, symbolizing the vagina, is also symbolic of giving birth to a new soul and achieving spiritual and physical perfection and immortality through the magnum opus. This Christian crap of being born again is false and amounts to nothing more than spiritual degeneracy and being steeped in more lies. There are 13 major chakras upon the soul. For a very long time, the enemy has touted the number 13 as unlucky, etc. This is to frighten people away from that number. This is no different from how horror movies are used to frighten people away from the spiritual occult. All of this ties in. When one does a ritual, one invokes the 4 quarters. To the uninitiated, this one points one a theme, calls out, etc. To those who know, this is actually an allegory for vibrating the soul to raise your own powers. The soul has 4 important directions, again, male and female. This is what the enemy uses the YHVH for, though the Yahweh is a corruption. The uneducated, the stupid, and the fools are deluded into believing this Yahweh is some sort of supreme being. Again, this is a concept. Not only is this a concept, it was stolen, then of course it was further corrupted. There is no supreme being. There is infinity in both the microcosm and the macrocosm. There is no such thing as some big bad Jewish spook that created everything and who is omnipotent and all of that horse manure they push on the unsuspecting public. There is a war going on out there. There are ETs who work through the Jews here who do hate humanity and want to enslave the world in order to provide a ready and easy host to leech energy off of souls. This is no different from cattle in a slaughterhouse. This is what we are to them, and it all depends upon just how ignorant and unknowing one is for the enemy to succeed. We have been cut off from our spiritual senses. Few can see what the enemy is doing, but through meditation and the serpent of Satan, our spiritual eyes are opened. Getting back to the 4 quarters of the soul, following the Ram meditation. Ram meditation 1 should vibrate the 4 quarters of the soul. IO can work for all 4, but one will notice a drastic change, one will notice a drastic charge and empowerment if the 4 quarters are vibrated correctly. Io was taken from the Greek Io. Nearly all of the Greek so-called myths are very important spiritual concepts, with the exception of some of the legends of the gods, such as Heracles, the account of his birth. In brackets it says, his human mother had a very difficult time as he was fathered by one of the gods, ETs. And the Nordic ETs are much larger and taller than us humans. I've seen a couple who were near 8 feet tall, such as Anubis. Heracles was a demigod, meaning he was half human. Io is another allegory, and while many of these gods are actual beings, their legends are important spiritual allegories, such as the Greek Argus, which is Agares. Agares is female, but the allegory portrays a male. The 1,000 eyes of the spiritually empowered soul. During her wanders, she came across Prometheus while chained. He gave her hope. He predicted that she would have to wander for many years. But she would eventually be changed back into human form and would bear a child. He predicted that a descendant of this child would be a great hero and set him free. His predictions came true. During her wanderings, many geographical features were named after her, including the Ionian Sea and the Bosphorus, which means ford of the cow. She eventually reached the Nile, where Zeus did restore her to human form. She bore Epiphos, and 11 generations later, her descendant Heracles would set Prometheus free. Going a step further, Ea, spelled E-A, is another name for Satan. Most of you already know the name Satan means truth in one of the most ancient of languages, Sanskrit. E-A is pronounced Ea, A as in may, say, day, etc. Nearly all of the words in Sanskrit end in the letter A. The letter A symbol in English and in many other Western alphabets is tapered like the pyramids and many other spiritual symbols. The taper is symbolic of the serpentine energy ascending the soul. This also has to do with focus on the spine. The so-called Tetragrammaton of the soul follows as E-O-A-A, E-O-A-A. These are the 4 vowel vibrations that empower and raise the energies of the 4 quarters of the soul to a high level. Right shoulder, right side of the body, vibrate. E. Left shoulder, left side of the body, vibrate. O. O. Front side of your body, vibrate the letter E. A. As in the word say. Or may on your backside, focusing on your spine, vibrate ah, ah. Now, one can see where this vibration was stolen, altered, and completely corrupted from a pagan concept into that foul Jewish invented entity, Jehovah. Again and again, I reiterate, the word God is a code word for the self. There is no Jehovah or Yahweh, which was taken from idiot Christians trying to pronounce the YHVH, as the J is often pronounced as Y in many languages. After this concept was stolen and corrupted by the Jews. The Christians are so far deluded, it is way beyond pathetic. The Jews have usurped spiritual knowledge and corrupted it in order to enslave and control the entire world. They themselves at the higher levels becoming God. In truth, that is all it is, a vibration to drastically empower the soul. Going further, I also have written about this before. Once you have enough knowledge and obstacles to enlightenment have been knocked down in your mind, this can easily be seen. The Nazarene was stolen from and invented into another fictitious Jewish character for Gentiles to slavishly worship. The serpent. Nearly every painting or illustration of so-called saints, of which in Spanish is Santa, an anagram of Satan. They are all depicted with halos, which represents the risen serpent of Satan. This is not just a Western concept, but is also seen extensively in the Far East, where Christianity stole nearly all of its corrupted content from, as with the Buddha also seen with a halo. Now, getting back to those paintings that we are told is the Nazarene, in truth, they are nothing more than an illustration of a man with a serpent ascended. No different from any other illustrated instructions. Same as with the so-called saints. When you purchase any appliances, etc., these normally will come with illustrated instructions, or the same as with someone in an illustration showing the certain steps to using an appliance or whatever. The Nazarene is nothing more than a Jewish invented character that has been used to replace the serpent. The paintings are a how-to, a concept, depicted by a man. As I already wrote some time ago, if the same were done with SpongeBob, millions upon millions would prostrate themselves before the mighty image of SpongeBob in reverence, worship, and self-devotion. Using a sponge for cleaning purposes would become a blasphemy and a major sacrilege. This would then, through the mass mind, take on a life of its own, a thought form, if you will. A sponge would adorn every altar. There would be giant, colossal sponges where the most holy would make a special pilgrimage, not to that stupid black box in Mecca, but to the giant sponge edifice. The tiny pineapple residence of SpongeBob would be heaven under the sea, with the end goal for every saved individual to, instead of floating up to the sky in the ether, would descend to the depths of the ocean in hopes of finding the tiny little home to spend the rest of eternity within. Kidding aside, given the endless and copious amounts of spiritual energy that are directed into this fictitious Nazarene character, the misguided and false sense of belief, and with this outrageous lie being promoted at every level, embedded in the minds of the populace through force, with no alternative, no wonder it has reached the monstrous level it has. In addition, that Nazarene was also corrupted from the 5 elements Hebrew style. When one has enough knowledge and has opened his or her mind, and through the grace of Satan, one can see all of this. Christianity is pushed upon the populace with no other alternative, even in doing crossword puzzles. Most are written by Jews. That Christian biblical crap has to be in there for the words, answers. As for modern paganism, Buddhism, Wicca, and everything else that is related and has been corrupted from the original paganism, all has been Christianized. The Jews even go a step further in dictating to the Gentiles that the powers of the mind are not to be used for material gain, which is an utter crock of shit. Quote from the Talmud: God has given the Jews power over the possessions and blood of all nations. Fundamentalist Christians work relentlessly to remove Santa from Xmas and replace him with the Nazarene. Take the Easter bunny out of Easter and again replace the rabbits and eggs with the Nazarene. And this includes all of the other holidays. For more information regarding this, see the article concerning the stolen year. The Jehovah's Witnesses also go a step further and work to remove all symbols which they tout as graven images, as the destruction of important spiritual symbols will eventually be the death of spiritual knowledge and truths. All of the occult and the spiritual teachings have the end objective of empowering the soul, raising the serpent, and performing the magnum opus. If one will look through open eyes, no amount of coercing, lying, or explaining will fool you again. The only thing one can do from this point is to work to wake up humanity to the truth. The excerpt taken from www.greekmythology.com/myths/the myths/Zeus, Zeus's lovers /lo/io.hotmail, HTML. This concludes part 7 of Exposing Christianity, and that piece was entitled The Real Tetragrammaton, Further Exposing Christianity. Hail Satan!